I was told the Sisters of Silence never talk, but when I tried to find out where they went, I started hearing them everywhere. Their quiet hum in the radio signals, the strange pulse in the computer files, the way entire planets went silent when someone said their name. My bosses said it was just a paperwork mistake. I knew it was something much worse. Now my report is locked away with 13 seals. No one will ever read it, and my tongue is gone. But even now, in this perfect silence, I can still hear them breathing. I was not summoned, I was selected. The difference matters in the Imperium, though most do not live long enough to learn why. A summons carries weight, ceremony, the bitter dignity of being named. Selection is quieter. It comes in the form of a data slate left on your work terminal while you sleep. Your name already replaced by an alphanumeric string that will follow you like a shadow until you are dust. I found mine at 0400 station time. The slate was warm, someone had been holding it. The requisition was stamped 13 times, I counted. Each stamp bore the aquila, but rendered in slightly different proportions, as if 13 separate hands had carved 13 separate truths into the same icon. The scribe who authorized it, an elderly woman whose name I never learned, would not meet my eyes when I presented the slate for verbal confirmation. She simply nodded, her lips pressed so tightly together they vanished into the creases of her face, and waved me toward the archives with a hand that trembled. "Clarify and close," she whispered, and the words tasted like ash even though I had not spoken them. I descended. The archives of the Departamento Munitorum are not places of learning. They are tombs for the living, where information goes to die in neat rows, catalogued and coffined in steel and parchment. The air is recycled through filters older than my grandfather, carrying with it the smell of degraded vellum, machine oil, and the faint, sour tang of human sweat dried into furniture no one dares replace. The lumens flicker at irregular intervals, not broken, but tired, as if even light struggles to persist in a place where hope has been administratively dissolved. My task was simple, laughably so, on the surface. The Silent Order, those eerie, shaven-headed warrior women who serve as psychic nulls, the anti-witches who guard our Imperium from the horrors of the warp, had failed to respond to 17 separate summons over the last 4 Terran years. Entire detachments, whole companies, gone silent in the most literal sense. Their last recorded entries were mundane routine garrison postings, psycho escort duties, ceremonial honors on shrine worlds where the air itself is supposed to be holy, standard deployments, the kind that generate reports every 30 solar days like clockwork, as predictable as the servitors that sweep the archive floors. But the reports had stopped, no distress signals, no requests for reassignment, no casualty notifications, no commendations, no courts-martial, just absence. A slow, creeping void in the ledgers where names and numbers should have been. I pulled the first crate of records at 0600. My gloves, standard issue, fingerless, designed to let you feel the pages while protecting them from skin oil, rasped against the dust coating the lid. It was thick, gray, undisturbed. The kind of dust that whispers, "No one has cared about this in a very long time." Inside, the manifests were organized by company designation and theater of operation. I cross-referenced departure logs with arrival logs. Simple, clerical, the kind of work you assign to someone you want to disappear into routine, until their spine curves and their eyes glaze and they stop asking questions. But the numbers did not match. Departures logged, signed, countersigned, approved by subsector command. Arrivals missing, or listed, but with dates that predated the departure, or recorded at stations that had been decommissioned 3 years prior, or signed by officials whose names were redacted into black bars thick as fingers. Each discrepancy was small. Alone, you could dismiss it as a transcription error, a cogitator glitch, the inevitable decay of a bureaucracy spanning a million worlds. But together, they hissed like a ruptured seal, like something under pressure, bleeding out into the vacuum, slow and silent and wrong. I took notes, meticulous. Dates, doc codes, transport hulls, astropathic relay confirmations. I filled 3 data slates and requisitioned a 4th. My hand cramped, my neck stiffened. The lumen above my workstation began to hum, a low, uneven drone that made my teeth ache. At hour 19, I found a pattern. Every missing detachment had been assigned to psyker transport duties, not garrison, not ceremonial, transport, the conveyance of unsanctioned psychers. Those poor, damned souls pulled from hive cities and agri worlds, their minds cracked open to the warp, From intake stations to the black ships, the silent were their jailers, their wardens, their executioners if the prisoners' minds split open and let the neverborn through. But the transports were arriving. The manifests confirmed it. The black ships were receiving their quotas. The psychers were being delivered. The silent were not. I sat back. My chair creaked. Somewhere in the archives, a servitor shuffled past, its augmetic leg dragging a faint scrape across the floor that echoed like a question. Where does a sister of silence go when she vanishes? I did not know. But I knew someone had decided I should find out, and I knew, deep in the part of my gut where fear lives before it becomes thought, that clarify and close was not an instruction, it was a prayer. At hour 23, I requisitioned clearance to access Vox logs. The request was approved in 4 minutes, too fast. In the Munitorum, requests take days, sometimes weeks. 4 minutes meant someone had been waiting for me to ask. The archive vault was colder than the mortuary, and just as talkative. I descended deeper. The Vox logs were stored in a sub-level I had never been told existed. The lift groaned as it carried me down, the cables whining like something in pain. When the doors opened, the air was different, thinner, sharper. It smelled of ozone and cold metal and something else, something organic and faintly sweet, like fruit left too long in a sealed container. The vault was circular. The walls were lined with data spools, each one tagged with a date and a clearance code. Some of the codes were yellow, some were red. One, near the back, was black. I pulled the first spool. My hands were shaking. The logs crackled to life. Routine transmissions, departure confirmations, status updates. The voices were clipped, professional, empty of anything resembling warmth. Standard Munitorum efficiency. But every third transmission, every third, degraded into static. Not the usual interference, not solar flares or warp turbulence. It sounded like pressure, like something heavy pressing down on the audio, compressing it, squeezing it until the words cracked and bled into silence. I listened to 47 logs. In 39 of them, the silence spoke, or tried to. I heard breathing, slow, deliberate, and beneath it, a sound I cannot describe except to say it was wrong. A hum, a vibration. It crawled into my ear and settled behind my eyes, and when I blinked I saw after images of shapes I did not recognize. I stopped the playback. My hands were cold. A clerk appeared at my shoulder. I had not heard him approach. He was young, maybe 20 Terran years, with the pallor of someone who has spent their entire life under artificial light. He did not look at me. He looked at the spool. Silence leaves fingerprints. He whispered. I stared at him. He pointed to the manifest ledger on the desk. Check the margins. Then he left. I checked. In the margins of 17 separate manifests, there were erasures, not deletions, erasures, the kind done by hand, with a blade or a stylus, scraping away the ink, until only the ghost of pressure remained. I held the pages up to the light. Faint indentations spelled out words I could barely read reclassified. Null, protocol engaged. Recipient hereditary, and at the bottom of one page in handwriting so small I needed a magnifying lens they asked to go. I closed the ledger. My hands were shaking worse now. I did not understand, but I knew I was not supposed to. At hour 31, my supervisor appeared. He was a broad man with a face like a clenched fist and eyes that had stopped being surprised by anything decades ago. He placed a hand on my shoulder. It was not comforting. Clarify and close, he said. I said, but the data, clarify and close. He squeezed. I understood. I returned to my station. I filed my preliminary report. I marked it inconclusive. Further review advised. I submitted it at hour 34. It was returned to me at hour 35, stamped, resolved. I had not resolved anything, but someone else had decided I had. I sat in the archives until the lumens dimmed for the sleep cycle. Around me, the shelves stretched into the darkness like ribs. The air was still. The servitors had stopped moving. Somewhere far above, the life of the station continued, eating, working, dying all in their neat little rows. I thought about the silent, about the women who gave up their voices to protect us from the screaming dark, about how easy it is to make someone disappear when they were never really there to begin with. I thought about the pattern, and I realized I was not investigating a mystery. I was being taught a lesson. The Imperium does not lose its daughters. It simply decides they were never born. And if you ask too loudly where they went, you learn why silence is a blessing. I gathered my things. I logged out. I walked to the lift. Behind me in the dark I heard it. A hum, low, steady, not mechanical. Breathing. I did not turn around. I pressed the button. The doors closed, and I began my descent toward answers I was not supposed to find. The archive vault smells like the inside of a sealed tomb, cold, stale, and faintly chemical, like the preservative fluids they use in the mortuary to keep corpses from rotting before they're burned. I've been told the ventilation system is functional. I've also been told that the Emperor protects. I believe the second more than the first. I returned to the vault at the start of the next shift. Sleep had been impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that hum, that low rhythmic breathing that didn't come from any servitor or air cycler I'd ever heard. It was organic, deliberate, and it had come from somewhere in the archives. I told myself it was exhaustion. 4 hours awake will do that to you. But my hands still shook as I descended the lift. The vault was empty when I arrived. The same circular chamber, the same walls of data, spools stretching up into the darkness where the lumens couldn't quite reach. The same smell, but something was different. The spools had been moved. Not all of them, just some. Subtle, the kind of thing you wouldn't notice unless you'd memorized their positions like I had. A spool tagged, Psychotransport, Theta Sector, was now 3 slots to the left. Another, marked, Silent Order Deployments, Segmentum Obscurus, had been rotated so the label faced the wall. Someone had been here. Someone had been looking at the same files I was. I felt a cold weight settle in my chest. The kind you get when you realize you're not alone in a room you thought was empty. When you understand that the thing watching you has been there longer than you have. I pulled the next spool. My hands were steadier now. Fear does that sometimes. It sharpens you, turns panic into focus. I needed answers, and the only place to find them was deeper into the records. The Vox logs resumed, more transmissions, more routine chatter. But the static was worse now. It came earlier in each recording, swallowed more of the words. I began to notice something else, the timestamps. They were wrong. Not incorrect, wrong. A transmission logged at 1432 station time would reference events that occurred at 1847. Another would loop back on itself, the same voices repeating the same words in the same order, but the timestamp would increment by 3 hours. It was like listening to echoes that arrived before the sound. I pulled up the cogitator logs. If the Vox transmissions were corrupted, maybe the data entries would make sense. I was an idiot for hoping. The cogitator had recorded everything, every transmission, every arrival, every departure, but the entries didn't match. A transport listed as arriving at Dock 70, 3 on the 15th day of the month was simultaneously recorded as departing from Dock 70, 3 on the 12th. The same hull, the same crew. 3 days earlier, I cross-checked the manifests. The silent assigned to that transport, Detachment Kappa, 912 warriors, were listed as Transferred Clearance Apex. I didn't know what Clearance Apex was. I queried the terminal. The screen flickered. Then it displayed a single line, ACCSS Dinan, Ku Ia Walogjid. I stared at the screen. Then I did something stupid. I queried again. The screen went black. For 5 full seconds there was nothing, no hum, no flicker, just darkness. Then slowly text began to appear, not typed, printed, line by line, as if something were physically writing it onto the screen from the inside. You are not authorized to continue this inquiry. I should have stopped. I should have logged out, walked away, filed a request for reassignment, and spent the rest of my career processing ration distribution reports in some basement where the worst thing that could happen was paper cuts and boredom. But I'd already gone too far. I typed who authorized the transfers. The screen flickered again. This time the text came faster. Authorization not required. Compliance assumed. Inquiry terminated. I felt my pulse in my throat. The terminal was responding. Not with standard error messages, not with automated denials. It was answering me. I typed where were they transferred. The screen went dark again. Then, in the bottom corner, a single word appeared nowhere. I sat back. My chair creaked. The sound echoed through the vault like a gunshot. The terminal shut down, completely. No standby light, no hum, dead. I tried to restart it. Nothing. I tried a secondary terminal across the room. Same result. Dead. Every terminal in the vault had powered down simultaneously. I was alone in the dark. No, not alone. I heard it again. The hum. It was closer now, not from the walls, not from the spools, from behind me. I turned slowly. There was nothing there, just the circular wall of data spools, just the darkness, just the cold. But I could feel it. The way you feel someone standing too close on a crowded transit platform. The way you know you're being watched even when you can't see the eyes. I backed toward the lift. My boots were silent on the metal floor, too silent. I should have heard the scrape, the squeak, the little imperfections of movement. But the vault swallowed the sound like it swallowed everything else. The lift doors opened. I stepped inside. I didn't press a button. I didn't select a level. The lift began to rise on its own. I watched the vault disappear below me. The spools, the terminals, the darkness. And in that darkness, just before the doors closed, I saw it, a shape, not solid, not entirely there, but present. Tall, wrapped in something that didn't reflect the light, and where its face should have been, there was only a smooth, featureless surface, a null, a sister of silence. The doors closed, the lift shuddered, and I realized she hadn't been watching me, she'd been waiting. When I emerged from the lift, I went directly to my supervisor's office. I didn't knock. I walked in, slammed my data slate onto his desk, and said, "I need to speak to someone with higher clearance." He didn't look up from his work. "No, you don't, sir. The data is corrupted. The timestamps don't match. The transfers are listed as going nowhere, and something is in the vault. Something that..." "Clarify," he interrupted. His voice was flat, tired, the voice of a man who has had this conversation before. "And close." "I can't close what I don't understand." He finally looked at me. His eyes were grey, empty. The kind of empty that comes from seeing too much and deciding that forgetting is easier than knowing. "Then you don't understand what close means," he said. "This matter is resolved. File your report as inconclusive. Move on." "But, that's an order." I stood there, my jaw clenched, my hands balled into fists at my sides. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab him by his uniform and shake him until he admitted that he knew, that he'd always known. But I didn't, because I saw it in his eyes. He wasn't protecting the truth. He was protecting me. I left his office. I filed the report. I marked it inconclusive. I submitted it at hour 47. It was returned at hour 48 resolved. I sat at my workstation and stared at the screen. Resolved. They had resolved nothing. They had simply decided that the question was more dangerous than the answer. But I couldn't stop. Because somewhere in the depths of the archives, in the darkness between the spools and the silence of the Vox logs, there was a pattern, a shape, a truth that someone, something, didn't want me to find. And the more I looked, the more I understood. The silent weren't vanishing. They were being erased, and the Imperium was writing them out of existence one record at a time, until even their absence was forgotten. I gathered my things, I logged out, and I began to prepare for the next step. Because if the archives wouldn't tell me where they went, I'd find someone who remembered them, even if I had to go to the places where memory goes to die. The hive, city of Tertius Mundus, eats people. Not metaphorically, not in the poetic sense that bureaucrats like to use when they write reports about acceptable population attrition and resource reallocation. It eats them, chews them up in its foundries and factorums, grinds their bones into the promethium refineries, and spits out whatever's left as ash that drifts down from the upper spires like black snow. I arrived on a cargo hauler that smelled like sweat and rust. The journey took 17 days, most of which I spent in a compartment barely large enough to lie down in, listening to the ship's hull groan under the pressure of the void. I had requisitioned travel clearance through standard channels. It was approved in 6 hours. Too fast again. Someone wanted me to keep digging, or someone wanted me to dig my own grave. The intake piers stretched along the lower mid-hive, where the city's guts pressed up against the exterior shell. Massive docking clamps jutted out like broken teeth, each one large enough to swallow a frigate whole. The air tasted like metal and oil and something bitter I couldn't name. Probably the runoff from the chem plants 3 levels up, seeping down through the ventilation grates. The piers were always busy. Day and night didn't mean much down here. The work never stopped. Servitors hauled cargo containers the size of hab blocks. Dock crews shouted orders in a dialect so thick with hive cant that I could barely understand one word in 3. And everywhere, there were people, pressed together, moving, a river of flesh that flowed through the narrow corridors and loading zones without ever really looking at each other. I was looking for Psyker transports. The black ships don't dock at the main piers. They come to the intake stations, isolated berths deep in the sub-levels, where the city's failures are processed and shipped off-world. The unsanctioned Psykers, the witches, the ones whose minds cracked open and let the warp bleed through. The silent were their escorts. Where I found Dock Theta 7 at the bottom of a service shaft that descended for 20 minutes. The lift was old, the cables whined. Somewhere below me, I could hear the rumble of the underhive, A constant, grinding bass note that you felt in your teeth more than heard with your ears. The dock was smaller than I'd expected, just a single platform, lit by a handful of flickering lumens that cast everything in shades of yellow and grey. The berth itself was empty. No ship, no crew, just mooring clamps that hung open like skeletal hands reaching for something that was no longer there. But there were people. Dockmasters, stevedores, the kind of men and women who spent their entire lives in the bowels of the hive, moving cargo and asking no questions, because questions got you killed. They sat on crates and smoked low, sticks that smelled like burning plastic, their eyes half closed against the smoke and the exhaustion. I approached the nearest one, a man with a face like cracked leather and augmetic fingers that clicked when he moved. He didn't look up when I stopped in front of him. "I'm looking for information," I said. He took a long drag on his low stick, exhaled. The smoke curled up toward the ceiling and disappeared into the darkness. "Everyone's looking for something," he said. His voice was rough, worn down. "Don't mean they find it." I pulled out my identification slate. "I'm with the Munitorum. I'm investigating a series of discrepancies in transport logs related to psycho convoys." He glanced at the slate, then at me, then back at his low stick. "You're wasting your time, maybe, but I'd still like to ask a few questions." He sighed, a long weary sound, like he'd been waiting for this conversation and dreading it in equal measure. "What do you want to know?" "The silent order. The escorts for the psycho transports. Do you remember them?" His jaw tightened. "Just a little, but I saw it." "Yeah," he said. "I remember. When was the last time you saw them?" He didn't answer right away. He finished his low stick, crushed it under his boot, and pulled out another. His augmetic fingers clicked as he lit it. 3 years ago, maybe 4. "Time's weird down here." "And what? What do you remember about them?" He looked at me then, really looked. And for the first time, I saw something in his eyes, not fear exactly, something colder, something resigned. "I remember the way conversations died when they walked past," he said quietly, like someone had sucked all the sound out of the air. You'd be talking to someone, and then they'd show up, and suddenly you'd forget what you were saying, forget why it mattered. You'd just stop. I nodded. "That's their nature. They're psychic nulls. They suppress the warp." "Yeah, I know." He exhaled smoke. "But it wasn't just that. It was the way they looked at you, like you weren't really there, like you were already a memory they'd decided to forget." "Did you ever speak to them?" He laughed. It was a bitter sound. "You don't speak to the silent. They don't talk. They don't gesture. They just exist. And you do your job and hope they don't notice you. Do you remember the last time they were here? The last transport?" He hesitated. His fingers drummed against his knee. Click, click, click. "There was a ship," he said slowly. "Didn't have a name, no sigils, no markings, just black hull, smooth as glass. It docked here maybe 4 times, 5, always the same pattern. Came in, loaded psychers, left within 6 hours. And the silent, they were always with it. A full squad, maybe 10, 12 of them. They'd march up the ramp in perfect formation, and you'd hear their boots. Thud, 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 like a heartbeat. And then the ramp would close and the ship would leave. When did it stop coming?" He looked down at his hands. The low stick trembled between his fingers. "It didn't stop," he said. "It came one last time, same as always. But this time something was different." "Different how?" He crushed the low stick. His knuckles were white. "The bells didn't ring." I frowned. "What bells?" "The harbor bells. Every time a ship leaves, the bells ring. It's protocol. It's how we track departures. But when that ship left," he trailed off, swallowed. "The bells didn't ring. The ship just went and the tides went out. And no one said a word." I felt cold. The kind of cold that starts in your spine and spreads outward until your fingers go numb. "Did anyone report it?" He laughed again, louder this time. "Harsh. Report what?" "That a ship left without bells. That's not a crime. That's barely an irregularity. And even if it was..." He shook his head. "You don't report things like that. Not down here. Not if you want to keep breathing." I pulled out my data slate. "I need you to tell me everything you remember about that ship. Hull configuration, docking times, crew complement." "No." I looked up. "Excuse me, no," he repeated. His voice was flat, final. "I've said enough. More than enough. You want to keep digging, that's your funeral. But I'm done. I can make this an official inquiry." "Then do it." He stood up. His augmetic leg hissed as it straightened. "Make it official. Haul me in front of an Arbit's tribunal. Threaten me with whatever you want. I'll tell them the same thing I'm telling you. I don't know anything." I didn't see anything, and the ship you're looking for was never here." He walked away. I watched him go. The other dock workers watched too, and I realized they all knew. Every single one of them. They'd seen the same thing he had. The ship. The silent. The bells that didn't ring. But they weren't going to talk. Not to me. Not to anyone. Because down here in the belly of the hive, survival meant forgetting. And the people who remembered too much didn't survive long. I spent the next 6 hours interviewing anyone who would speak to me. Most wouldn't. The few who did gave me nothing useful. Standard responses, vague memories, convenient forgetfulness. But I did learn one thing. The manifests. Every ship that docked at Theta 7 was logged. Arrival time, departure time, cargo tonnage, crew manifest. It was standard protocol, Imperial law. Even the black-hulled ship would have been logged. I found the dockmaster's office buried 3 levels deeper, at the end of a corridor that smelled like mildew and old parchment. The door was unlocked. The office was empty. The manifests were stacked on a desk that looked like it hadn't been cleaned in a decade. I flipped through them, found the date range the stevedore had mentioned. There it was. A single entry. No ship name, just a hull designation NL049, arrival time 4022, departure time 2017, cargo 43 Psychers, class Beta and Gamma, escort silent order, detachment Mu-12. I scanned down to the destination field. It was blank, not redacted, not classified, blank. As if someone had simply decided that where the ship was going didn't matter. I checked the next cycle. The ship returned, same hull, same cargo capacity, escortee, silent order, detachment Epsilon 6, destination blank. I checked the cycle after that, and the next and the next, 16 separate transports, 16 different silent detachments, all of them blank destinations, and then, abruptly, the entries stopped. The last one was logged 4 Terran years ago. Hull designation NL009, arrival on 0934, departure 15s we live in cargo, 37 Psychers, escort silent order, detachment Kappa, 9, destination blank, and beneath it, in handwriting so small I almost missed it, someone had written a single word: consumed. I stared at the word, traced it with my finger. The ink was old, faded, but still legible. Consumed. Not departed, not transferred, not re-signed. Consumed. I felt my pulse in my throat, my hands were shaking again. I pulled out my data slate and photographed the manifest. Then I photographed the 16 preceding it, every single one. I was turning to leave when I heard it. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming from the corridor outside. I froze. The footsteps, silence. Then a voice, soft, almost a whisper, but clear enough that I heard every word. "You should not have come here." I turned. The doorway was empty, but the air was wrong, too still, too cold. The kind of cold that doesn't come from temperature, but from absence. Like standing in a room where all the warmth has been surgically removed. I knew what it was. A null, a sister of silence. She was there, in the doorway. I couldn't see her, not clearly. My eyes wouldn't focus, but I could feel her. The pressure, the weight of her presence pressing down on the space like a hand closing around a throat. I tried to speak, my mouth opened, but no sound came out. She didn't move, didn't gesture, didn't do anything. She just was. And in that moment, I understood. They weren't gone. They were watching. They had always been watching. And I had been asking the wrong question. The question wasn't, where did the silent go? The question was, what were they guarding us from? The pressure lifted. The cold receded. I gasped, a sharp, ragged inhale that burned in my lungs. The doorway was empty. I ran. I didn't stop running until I reached the lift. I didn't look back. I didn't check to see if anyone was following. I just ran. And when the lift doors closed and I began my ascent back toward the main piers, I realized something. I had been given a warning, not a threat, a warning. Stop asking questions. Stop digging. Stop trying to find answers that were never meant to be found. But I couldn't stop. Because the manifests had told me something the archives never did. The silent hadn't vanished. They had been consumed, and whatever was consuming them was still out there. Still waiting. Still hungry. The shrine world of Sanctusel is supposed to be holy. That's what the pilgrims say, at least. They come from across the sector, packed into pilgrim barges that smell like unwashed bodies and desperation, to walk the marble halls and pray to saints whose names no one can quite remember. The planet is covered in temples. Thousands of them, each one built on the bones of the last. Layer upon layer of devotion stacked so high that the oldest foundations have crumbled into dust beneath the weight. I didn't come to pray. I came because the records said the Silent had been here. Detachment Theta 4, assigned to ceremonial duties during the Feast of the Martyrs' Ascension 3 years ago. They were supposed to stand vigil at the Shrine of the Unspoken Name, a place where psychers came to confess their sins before being shipped off-world. They had arrived. The manifest confirmed it. But there was no record of their departure. The pilgrim barge dropped me at the primary landing field, a vast expanse of cracked ferrocrete surrounded by statues of saints so worn by wind and time that their faces had smoothed into featureless ovals. The air smelled like incense and ash. Somewhere in the distance, bells were ringing, slow, mournful, the kind of sound that made you think of funerals. I found the Shrine of the Unspoken Name at the end of a processional road lined with skulls. Human skulls, thousands of them, each one set into the ground like cobblestones, their empty sockets staring up at the pilgrims who walked over them without a second glance. The shrine itself was old, older than the city around it. The walls were black stone, carved with prayers in a dialect I didn't recognize. The entrance was open, a gaping archway that led into darkness so complete that even the lumens I carried couldn't penetrate more than a few meters. I stepped inside. The air was colder here still, the kind of stillness that pressed against your ears and made you hyper-aware of every sound you made. My boots echoed on the stone floor, click, 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 and I had the sudden, irrational urge to take them off and walk barefoot, just to stop the noise. The shrine was a single vast chamber. The ceiling was lost in shadow. The walls were lined with alcoves, each one containing a statue of a hooded figure with no face. Pilgrims knelt before them, heads bowed, lips moving in silent prayer. I approached the nearest alcove, looked at the statue. It was carved from the same black stone as the walls, smooth and cold to the touch. There was something wrong about it, something I couldn't quite name. The proportions were off. The robe didn't quite hang right, and the space where the face should have been was too smooth, too deliberate. It wasn't an artistic choice. It was an erasure. I moved deeper into the shrine, past rows of kneeling pilgrims, past alcoves filled with statues that all looked the same, faceless, hooded, silent, and I realized this wasn't a shrine to saints. It was a shrine to the Silent. I found the sacristan in a side chamber, sweeping the floor with a broom that looked older than he was. He was a thin man, bent with age, his skin the color of old parchment. He didn't look up when I entered. "I'm looking for information," I said. He kept sweeping. The bristles scratched against the stone, scritch, scritch, scritch. "Everyone seeks something in the shrine," he said. His voice was dry, hollow. "Most find only silence. I'm with the Munitorum. I'm investigating. I know who you are." He interrupted. He finally looked up. His eyes were milky with cataracts. "You're the one asking about the Silent." I felt a chill run down my spine. "How did you?" "Word travels," he said. He leaned on his broom. "Even to places like this. Especially to places like this. Then you know why I'm here. I know you're wasting your time. Maybe. But I'd still like to ask a few questions." He sighed, set the broom aside, gestured for me to follow. He led me through a narrow corridor to a room I could only describe as an ossuary. The walls were lined with bones. Not skulls, just bones, femurs, ribs, vertebrae, all stacked in neat rows like cordwood. The air smelled like dust and something faintly sweet, decay held at bay by preservative oils. "This is where we keep the remains of those who die in the shrine," the sacristan said. "Pilgrims, priests, servants of the throne, all are equal in death. I'm not here about the dead, aren't you?" He looked at me. His milky eyes seemed to see right through me. "You're looking for the Silent. They were here 3 years ago. They stood vigil during the feast. They performed their duties without complaint, without question, and then they left." "No," I said. "They didn't leave. There's no departure record, no transport log, no. They left," he repeated. His voice was firm. "Just because you have no record of it doesn't mean it didn't happen." I pulled out my data slate. "The manifests lie," he said. "Or they tell truths you're not meant to understand. It doesn't matter which." I stared at him. "You're hiding something." "Of course I am," he smiled. It was a sad, tired expression. "We all are. That's what it means to serve the Imperium. We hide the truths that would break us and pray that the lies hold long enough for someone else to shoulder the burden. I need to know what happened to them." "Why?" "Because..." I stopped, realized I didn't have a good answer. "Because it's my job." "Your job," he repeated. He turned away, ran a hand along the wall of bones. "Do you know why we sweep the shrine every day?" I frowned. "To keep it clean." "No," he shook his head. To make sure there's dust. I don't understand. Dust is proof of presence. Proof that things exist, that they move, that they leave traces. But in the alcoves where the silent knelt, he trailed off, looked at me. There is no dust. I felt my stomach drop. What? Was sweep every day, every single day, and every day dust settles. On the statues, on the floor, on the prayer benches, everywhere. He paused, except where the silent knelt. Those spaces remain clean, untouched, as if absence itself is a blessing. I didn't know what to say. He continued, pilgrims come here to confess, to speak their sins and their fears and their pain, and for most, it helps. The words come out and they feel lighter. He looked at me, but there are some who come and find that their thoughts grow quiet, their fears fade, their pain stops, and they leave feeling clear, peaceful, empty. That's the nulls, I said. That's what they do, they suppress. And then the headaches start. He interrupted. Days later, weeks later, the pilgrims return. They scream in their sleep. They claw at their own faces. They beg us to make it stop. I felt cold. What are you saying? I'm saying the silent gave more than their voices to the Imperium, he said quietly. They gave pieces of themselves, little by little, confession by confession, until there was nothing left. That's not. We found something, he said. After they left, a donation logged in the reliquary register, a crate, lead line, sealed with 13 purity seals. What was inside? He hesitated. Braids. I stared at him. Braids. Hair, shorn from the heads of the silent, bound in lead wire. 43 of them, each one labeled with a designation code. He swallowed. No names, just numbers. Where's the crate now? Gone. He looked away. Collected. 2 days after it was logged, by men in black robes who wouldn't speak and wouldn't show their faces. Who were they? I don't know, and I didn't ask. I felt my hands curl into fists. You're telling me the silent were here, they performed their duties, and then they, what? Just gave up parts of themselves and left? No, he said softly. I'm telling you they gave up parts of themselves and didn't leave. Not entirely. What does that mean? He turned to face me fully. His milky eyes were wet. It means I still hear them. At night, when the shrine is empty and the pilgrims have gone to sleep, I hear footsteps in the halls. Slow, deliberate. The kind of footsteps that echo even though there's no one there. He paused. And sometimes when I'm sweeping I find things. What things? Marks, he whispered, on the walls. Scratched into the stone. Runes, symbols. The kind that hurt to look at. The kind that make your thoughts go quiet and your breath catch in your throat. He shook his head. I scrubbed them away. Every time. But they keep appearing. I pulled out my slate. Show me. No, I need to see. No, he repeated. His voice cracked. You don't understand. The marks aren't warnings. They're not messages. They're their anchors. They're the only thing keeping them here. Keeping who here? The silent. He whispered. The ones who gave too much. Who became too empty. Who forgot how to leave because there was nothing left to take with them. I felt my skin crawl. You're saying they're still here, in the shrine. I'm saying pieces of them are echoes, shadows, the parts they cut away so the rest could keep serving. He looked at me, and I'm saying you need to leave, now, before you become part of the shrine too. I wanted to argue, wanted to demand proof, evidence, something concrete I could take back and file in a report. But I didn't, because I could feel it, the same pressure I'd felt in the archive, the same cold, the same sense of being watched by something that didn't blink. I turned to leave. The sacristan grabbed my arm. His grip was surprisingly strong. They didn't vanish, he said. They were unmade, piece by piece, and whatever's left of them is still here, still serving, still silent. He let go. I walked out of the ossuary, out of the shrine, out into the daylight that suddenly felt too bright, too loud, too real after the suffocating stillness inside. I didn't look back, but I knew the silent weren't gone. They were everywhere. In the archives, in the docks, in the shrines. Everywhere people prayed for silence. And they were waiting for what I didn't know. But I was starting to suspect. And the thought made my hands shake so badly, I had to sit down on the steps of the shrine and breathe until the world stopped spinning. Because if they were waiting, then someone had given them a reason to wait. And that someone was still out there, still using them, still taking pieces. Until there would be nothing left but absence. And absence, I was learning, had teeth. The quarantine bastion doesn't have a name, just a designation, Chef 7 of Tertius. It sits on the edge of a dead moon orbiting a gas giant that no one bothers to chart anymore. The moon is gray, lifeless, the kind of place where nothing grows and nothing lives, except the people stationed there against their will. I arrived on a supply shuttle that made the trip once every 3 months. The pilot didn't speak to me, didn't even look at me. He just pointed to the bastion when we came in for landing, a squat, ugly structure of reinforced rockcrete and gun emplacements, perched on a ridge like a tumor. The shuttle landed, I disembarked. The pilot left without a word. I was alone. The bastion loomed above me, its walls scarred by impacts that looked old but never repaired. Gun turrets tracked my approach with mechanical precision, their barrels following me like eyes. The entrance was a single blast door, thick enough to survive an orbital strike. It didn't open. I stood in front of it for 10 minutes, checked my credentials, verified my clearance, transmitted my identification code. Nothing. Finally, a voxcaster crackled to life above the door. A voice emerged, flat, distorted, empty of anything resembling warmth. "State your business." "I'm with the Department of Munitorum," I said. "I'm investigating discrepancies in personnel transfer records related to the Silent Order. I have clearance to inspect." "Denied." I blinked. "Excuse me, access denied. Return to your shuttle." "I have authorization from." "Authorization insufficient. Return to your shuttle." I felt anger flare in my chest. "I'm not leaving until I speak to someone in command. Get me the Bastion commander. Now." Silence. Then, the Vox clicked off. I waited. Minutes dragged by. The wind howled across the dead moon, carrying with it dust that tasted like metal. The gun turrets never stopped tracking me. I could feel their targeting arrays locked onto my skull. Finally, the Vox crackled again. "Commander Voss will speak with you. Remain at the door." The blast door didn't open. Instead, a smaller access panel slid aside, a narrow gun slit barely large enough to see through. I approached, pressed my face close. Inside, I could see a corridor, clean. Too clean. The kind of clean that comes from constant maintenance, constant sterilization. The walls were white, smooth, featureless, and at the far end, standing perfectly still, was a figure in a gray uniform. Commander Voss. He didn't move, didn't approach. He just stood there, hands clasped behind his back, staring at me through the gun slit. "You have 5 minutes," he said. His voice was cold, precise, the voice of a man who had stopped seeing people as people a long time ago. "Speak." "I'm investigating the disappearance of multiple Silent Order detachments," I said. "Records indicate that several were transferred to this facility under Apex clearance protocols. I need to verify." "There is nothing to verify, sir, with respect." "You are misinformed," he interrupted. "No Silent Order personnel have been stationed at this facility for the past 4 Terran years. Your records are incorrect. Return to your shuttle." I pulled out my data slate, held it up to the gun slit. "These transfer logs say otherwise. Detachment Epsilon 6, Detachment Mu 12, Detachment. Those transfers were rescinded," he said. "Clerical error. The subjects were rerouted to alternative facilities." "What facilities?" "That information is classified." "Under what authority?" "Apex clearance." There it was again, that phrase, Apex clearance, a rank I'd never heard of. A level of authority that didn't exist in any regulation I'd ever read. "I need to speak to the transferred personnel," I said, "or at least verify their current assignments." "Impossible." "Why?" "Because they are no longer in transit." I felt my pulse quicken. "What does that mean?" "It means exactly what I said." His voice didn't change, didn't waver. "They are no longer in transit. They have arrived at their final destinations. Their service has been concluded." I stared at him through the gun slit. "You're telling me they're dead?" "I'm telling you their service has been concluded." "That's the same thing." "No," he said quietly. "It's not." I felt cold. The same cold I'd felt in the archives, in the docks, in the shrine. "Let me inside," I said. "Let me see the records. Let me verify." "No, I have authorization." "Your authorization is insufficient." "Then I'll escalate this to Sector Command. I'll file a formal complaint. You will do nothing," he said. His voice dropped to a whisper, a hiss. "You will return to your shuttle. You will file your report as inconclusive, and you will forget you ever came here." "I can't do that." "You will." "Why?" He leaned closer to the gun slit. I could see his eyes now. They were gray, empty. The same gray I'd seen in my supervisor's eyes, the same emptiness. "Because if you don't," he whispered, "you will join them." I stepped back. My hands were shaking. The gun slit slid shut. The Vox crackled one last time. "Your shuttle will arrive in 6 hours. Do not approach the bastion again. Do not attempt to enter. Do not transmit any communications from this location. You are being watched." You are being monitored. Any deviation from these instructions will result in immediate termination. The Vox cut off. I stood there, alone, the wind howling around me, the gun turrets tracking my every move. I should have left. I should have walked back to the landing pad and waited for the shuttle and filed my report as inconclusive and moved on with my miserable life. But I didn't. Because I'd seen something through the gun slit behind Commander Voss, in the corridor, just for a moment. A cell, or what looked like a cell. The walls were mirrored, smooth, reflective, and bolted to the floor were restraints, thick, industrial, the kind designed to hold something that didn't want to be held. But the restraints were empty. Not broken, not torn, just empty. As if whatever had been strapped there had simply stopped existing. I circled the bastion, stayed low, kept to the ridgeline where the gun turrets couldn't track me without adjusting their angle. It took me an hour to reach the far side. There, half buried in the dust, I found a vent shaft, narrow, corroded, barely large enough to crawl through. I hesitated. This was insane. If they caught me, they'd kill me. No trial, no report, just a bullet in the back of the head and a shallow grave in the dust. But I'd come too far to stop now. I squeezed into the vent. The shaft was tight. The metal scraped against my shoulders, my elbows. I had to worm forward, inch by inch, breathing dust that tasted like rust and decay. The shaft descended steeply. I slid more than crawled, my boots scraping for purchase against the smooth metal. And then, abruptly, the shaft opened into a larger space. I tumbled out, hit the floor hard, lay there gasping, my lungs burning. I was inside. The room was small, circular. The walls were the same white as the corridor I'd seen through the gun slit. But here up close I could see the imperfections, scratches, dents, and something else. Stains, dark, brownish, the kind that don't come out no matter how much you scrub. Blood. I stood. My legs were shaking. My hands were numb. I activated the lumen on my data slate. The light cut through the darkness like a knife. The room was a cell. The walls were mirrored, smooth, reflective surfaces that threw my own face back at me a dozen times over. The floor was bare metal, and bolted to the center were the restraints I'd seen through the gun slit. They were empty, but the straps were frayed, worn, not by force, by use, by something struggling against them for so long that the material had simply given up. I approached the restraints, knelt down, ran my fingers along the straps. They were damp, not wet, just damp, as if something had been sweating or crying. I pulled back. My stomach churned. On the wall just above the restraints, someone had scratched something into the mirror. The glass was scarred. Desperate. Boure stel ha. I felt my breath catch. Beneath it in smaller isis t issue tok voidcraft. T tok ichi and beauty mebuyi ere steel shia. And beneath that, repeated over and over, carved so deeply into the glass that it had cracked c sealant t seant. I backed away. My hands were shaking. My pulse was roaring in my ears. The cell wasn't empty. It was full of echoes, full of absence, full of the pieces of the silent that had been cut away and left to rot in the dark. I turned to leave, and froze. Standing in the doorway was a figure, tall, wrapped in something dark, something that didn't reflect the light from my data slate. A null. She didn't move, didn't speak, she just stood there, watching me. I tried to run. My legs wouldn't move, my body wouldn't respond. It was like I'd been paralyzed, frozen in place by the sheer weight of her presence. She raised a hand, and the lumen on my data slate went out. In the darkness, I heard it. Breathing, not hers. There's dozens of them, hundreds all around me. In the walls, in the mirrors, in the empty restraints. The silent, not gone, still here. And they were screaming, not with their voices, with their absence. I don't remember leaving the bastion. I don't remember crawling back through the vent, or stumbling across the dust to the landing pad, or collapsing in the shuttle when it finally arrived. I remember waking up in the med bay of a Navy frigate, strapped to a cot, with a medica standing over me. She asked me questions I couldn't answer, checked my vitals, scanned my pupils, told me I was lucky to be alive. I didn't feel lucky. I felt empty, like something had been scooped out of me and left a hollow space where thoughts should have been. The medica said I'd been exposed to something. She didn't know what, just something. My vitals were normal, my scans were clean, but my cognitive responses were delayed. My speech was slurred, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. You need rest, she said. I didn't rest. I filed a report, marked it urgent, transmitted it to Sector Command. It was returned 6 hours later. Resolved. I stared at the word until it stopped making sense. Then I did something I shouldn't have done. I accessed the Navy's ship registry, cross-referenced hull designations with the manifests from the Hive city docks. Looked for the black, hulled transport, the one with no name, no schedules, the one the stevedore swore had taken the silent NLO 409. The registry flagged it immediately. Derelict, location grid theta 9-7, subsector mortis, status quarantined, clearance apex again. The ship was drifting, had been for 3 years, no crew, no power, no distress signal, and no one had gone to retrieve it. I requested transport. The request was denied. I requested again it. Used every authorization code I had. Denied. So I did the only thing I could. I bribed a voidsman. It cost me 3 months' pay and a bottle of Amasec I'd been saving for a decade. But he got me aboard a cargo hauler heading towards subsector Mortis. He didn't ask why. He didn't ask what I was looking for. He just took my money and looked the other way. The hauler dropped me at a listening post on the edge of the subsector. From there, I requisitioned a shuttle. Told the dock officer it was for a routine inspection. He didn't believe me, but he didn't stop me. The derelict floated in the black like a corpse. No running lights, no heat signature. Just a dark silhouette against the stars, slowly tumbling end over end. The airlock was unlocked. The interior was cold. So cold my breath fogged in front of my face and my fingers went numb within seconds. I activated my suit's lumen, stepped inside. The ship was wrong. Not damaged, not decayed, just wrong. The walls were clean, too clean, as if someone had scrubbed every surface until it shone. But the air smelled like copper and ozone, and beneath that, something else. Something organic, something that made my stomach turn. I moved through the corridors. My boots echoed on the metal floor. The sound was too loud, too sharp. It felt like the ship was listening. I found the first chalk mark 10 meters from the airlock. It was scrawled on the bulkhead in thick, jagged strokes. A rune. Blocky, angular. The kind of symbol that made your eyes itch when you looked at it too long. I didn't recognize it, but I knew what it meant. Negation. Silence. Stop. I kept moving. The runes multiplied. They covered the walls, the ceiling, the floor. Everywhere I looked, there were more of them, layered, overlapping, carved so deeply into the metal that the edges had rusted. It was like someone had been trying to nail silence into the ship itself. I reached the bridge. The door was open. The interior was dark. My lumen cut through the blackness, illuminating consoles that had been smashed, screens that had been shattered, chairs bolted to the floor, their restraints torn and dangling. And in the center of the room, facing the main viewport, was a picked feed terminal. It was still active. The screen flickered, static hissed, and then, abruptly, an image resolved. A woman, shaven head, pale skin, eyes like furnaces that had burned out and left only ash. She stared at the camera. Didn't blink, didn't move, and then, slowly, she raised a hand. The audio died, not cut off, not disrupted, died, like something had reached into the recording and strangled the sound. The image flickered, the woman tilted her head, and for just a moment, just a fraction of a second, I saw her mouth move. No sound, no words, but I heard it, not with my ears, with my mind. A single word pressed into my skull like a brand run. The screen went dark. I stumbled backward. My legs hit a chair. I fell, gasped. My lumen flickered. I stood, forced myself to breathe, to think. The medica bay. I needed to check the medica bay. I found it on the lower deck. The door was sealed. I overrode the lock. It hissed open. Inside, the air was colder. The bay was small. 6 beds, 3 on each side, each one equipped with restraints, monitoring equipment, IV drips, and in the corner, stacked neatly against the wall, were cribs. Not beds, cribs, small, narrow, coffin-sized. Each one lined with lead sheeting and inscribed with the same blocky runes I'd seen in the corridors. I approached the nearest crib, ran my hand along the edge. The restraints were frayed, worn, the same as the ones in the quarantine bastion, but there were no charts, no names, no records, just empty cribs. And beneath one of them, scratched into the floor in letters so small I almost missed them. I said I knelt down, traced the words with my finger. I stood, my hands were shaking. My breath was coming in short, ragged gasps. The ship was a prison, not for psychers, for the silent. They had been brought here, restrained, stripped of everything that made them human. And then what? I didn't know, but I knew I had to leave. Now, I turned toward the door, and stopped. Standing in the corridor, silhouetted against the faint glow of my lumen, was a figure. No, not 1, 12. They stood in perfect formation, identical, silent, their heads shaven, their eyes empty. The silent, still here, still serving. I tried to speak. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. They didn't move. They just watched, and in that moment I understood. They weren't haunting the ship. They were the ship. They had been taken apart, piece by piece. Their voices, their names, their humanity, and what was left had been woven into the hull, into the walls, into the very metal itself. They weren't guarding the ship. They were the ship, and the ship was still screaming. I ran. I don't remember reaching the airlock. Don't remember sealing it behind me. Don't remember launching the shuttle. I just remember the derelict shrinking in the viewport as I burned the engines to maximum and prayed I'd get far enough away before it decided to follow. Because it could. I knew it could. The silent weren't gone. They were everywhere, and they were waiting. For orders, for purpose, for someone to tell them what to do. And whoever had given them those orders was still out there, still using them, still taking pieces, until there was nothing left. I filed my report when I returned to the station. I didn't mark it unconclusive this time. I marked it critical, immediate action required. I attached everything, the manifests, the recordings, the images of the runes, the testimony of the sacristan and the stevedore and Commander Voss. I transmitted it directly to Sector Command. It was returned in 4 hours, resolved. I threw my data slate across the room. It shattered against the wall. Resolved, I said aloud. My voice cracked. Resolved, resolved, but nothing was resolved. Nothing would ever be resolved, because the Imperium didn't want answers. It wanted silence. I spent 3 days drunk. Then I sobered up. Because sitting in my quarters and waiting to disappear wasn't going to change anything. I needed proof, something undeniable. Something they couldn't stamp resolved and throw into an archive to rot. I needed the source. I needed to find where the silent were being taken. And I needed to find who was taking them. The trail led me to a manufacturum annex on the edge of a sector I'd never heard of. The kind of place that existed in the gaps between official records. Where ships docked without logging arrivals, where cargo moved without manifests, where people disappeared without anyone noticing. The annex was old, rust-streaked, the lumens flickered, the air smelled like promethium and decay. I bribed my way inside, told the foreman I was conducting an audit. He didn't believe me. But he took my money and pointed toward the back of the facility. Warehouse Epsilon. He said, "You didn't hear it from me. I found Warehouse Epsilon at the end of a corridor that felt like it went on forever. The door was sealed, locked with a keypad that required a 6-digit code. I didn't have the code, but I had a plasma torch. The lock melted, the door hissed open. Inside, the warehouse was dark cold. My lumen barely penetrated the blackness, and then I saw them, crates. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, stacked floor to ceiling, each one the length of a coffin. Each one stamped with a procurement code that mapped to nowhere. I approached the nearest crate, pulled it open. Inside, nestled in null, braid and foam, was a suit of armor, void black, sized for a small frame, polished until it shone, but empty, no one inside, just the impression of a body, the shape of limbs that had worn the armor so many times the foam had compressed into the outline of a human form. But the form was wrong, too thin, too hollow, like the person wearing it had been slowly erased until only the shadow remained. I opened another crate, empty, another, empty, another empty. I stopped counting at 50. They were all the same, armor, weapons, equipment, all sized for the silent, all empty. I found a foreman in the back of the warehouse. He was sitting on a crate, smoking a low stick, staring at nothing. "What is this place?" I asked. He didn't look at me. "Reassignment depot." "For who?" "The ones who don't come back. The silent." He nodded, took a long drag. "Exiled. They come in, get processed, get equipped, get shipped out." He paused. "Most don't come back. The ones that do." He trailed off, shook his head. "They're not the same." "What do you mean?" "They're quieter, emptier, like someone reached inside and scooped out whatever made them and left just the shell." He looked at me. His eyes were hollow. "We'll call it reassignment to stillness." "Stillness?" "Yeah." He crushed the low stick under his boot. "Because that's what they are still. They stand, they move, they follow orders, but they're not really there anymore. Where are they being sent?" "I don't know, and I don't ask. Someone has to know. Maybe." He shrugged. "But no one who's asking is gonna get an answer." I pulled one of the crates open fully. The armor inside gleamed. I ran my hand along the breastplate, felt the null braid woven into the lining, and then I felt it. A hum, low, rhythmic, not mechanical. I yanked my hand back. The crate was empty, but it wasn't. Something was there. In the armor, in the impression left behind, in the absence itself, a piece of a sister of silence. Hollowed out, cut away, left behind like shed skin. I stumbled backward. The foreman was watching me. You feel it, don't you? Feel what? The quiet. He smiled. It was a sad, broken expression. That's what they leave behind. When they're reassigned. When they stop being people and start being tools. The quiet stays. It fills the spaces they used to occupy. And if you're not careful, he tapped his temple. It fills you too. I left the warehouse. I didn't run. I didn't sprint. I just walked, one foot in front of the other, through the corridor, through the annex, out into the cold, recycled air of the station, and I realized something. The silent weren't being killed. They were being consumed, piece by piece, layer by layer, until there was nothing left but the quiet, and the quiet was being stored, warehoused, prepared for deployment, because silence wasn't just the absence of sound, it was a weapon, and someone was building an arsenal. I returned to the archives. I don't know why. Maybe because it was the only place left. Maybe because I needed to file one last report. Maybe because I was too tired to run anymore. The archives were empty. The servitors had stopped moving. The lumens flickered. The air was cold. I sat at my workstation, pulled up my files, began to type, but the words wouldn't come, because I already knew how this would end. I stopped typing, leaned back in my chair, stared at the ceiling, and then I saw it on my desk, a report, printed, bound, stamped with 13 purity seals, my report, but I hadn't written it. I picked it up, flipped through the pages. It was perfect, every detail, every discrepancy, every interview, every piece of evidence I'd gathered, but the conclusion was different. The conclusion said the silent order did not vanish. They were never here. Records indicating their presence were clerical errors, corrected upon review. No further action required. I stared at the words. They were lies, but they were written in my handwriting. I flipped to the signature page. It was signed by me, but I hadn't signed it. I tried to speak, to object, to scream, but my mouth wouldn't open. My throat was dry, empty. I reached up, touched my lips. They were smooth, seamless, as if someone had sealed them shut. I tried to breathe, gasped, choked. No air, no sound, just silence. I understood then. The order that devoured sorrows had been asked to devour itself, and I had been the witness. The final piece, the one who would sign the ledger and confirm that the question had been answered, that the silent had never existed, that their absence was a mercy, that silence was a blessing. I picked up the pen. My hand moved on its own. I signed, once for myself, once for the hand guiding mine. The report closed. The purity seals glowed, and somewhere, in the darkness of the archives, I heard it, breathing, not one voice, hundreds. The silent, still here, still watching, still waiting, and I was one of them now, forever.